Bo Bichette's future has suddenly become one of the biggest storylines in Major League Baseball once again, and this time, Toronto Blue Jays fans have a real reason to follow every new development. After leaving the franchise as one of its most important players of the past decade and signing a blockbuster contract with the New York Mets, everything has changed. What was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter filled with success has instead turned into a season defined by frustration, pressure, and results far below expectations. Now, as the Mets find themselves in the middle of a deep crisis, a question that seemed impossible just a few months ago is beginning to gain momentum. Could Bo Bichette actually find his way back to Toronto? When Bichette decided to enter free agency following the 2025 season, many people understood his decision. The star shortstop had given virtually everything he could to the Blue Jays organization. He spent years as one of the faces of the
franchise, helping return Toronto to contention in the American League while building a special connection with the fan base. Even though he never managed to bring home the long-awaited World Series championship, his legacy was built on unforgettable performances, clutch hits, and moments that Blue Jays fans will remember for years to come. His final season in Toronto looked like the perfect ending to an incredible chapter. Bichette produced one of the best offensive campaigns of his career, displayed remarkable consistency throughout the regular season, and even battled through injuries to return when the team needed him the most. Once the playoffs arrived, he once again proved why he had become one of the most reliable players on the roster. During the 2025 World Series, Bichette delivered when the Blue Jays needed him most. In an intensely competitive series, he collected several key hits and launched a dramatic 3-run home run in Game 7 that, for a few unforgettable moments,
made all of Toronto believe the franchise's third World Series title had finally become reality. The ending turned out differently, but that swing forever cemented his place among the greatest players of the modern Blue Jays era. Not long afterward, the farewell became official. Unable to reach an agreement on a contract extension, Toronto watched one of its franchise cornerstones head elsewhere. The New York Mets viewed Bichette as a cornerstone for their ambitious championship project and wasted no time making a massive financial commitment to bring him to Queens. Expectations were sky high. Analysts believed he would strengthen a lineup capable of reaching the postseason and competing for a World Series title immediately. But reality unfolded very differently. Instead of finding stability, Bichette became part of a team that simply failed to live up to the enormous expectations created during the offseason. The Mets began piling up losses, fell behind in the National League standings, and quickly found themselves dealing with constant criticism from both the media and their own fan base. A roster built to contend immediately suddenly found itself near the bottom of the standings, turning every series into another test of patience for an organization that had invested millions with one goal in mind: winning now. Naturally, when a project of that magnitude fails to deliver, attention shifts toward the players who arrived carrying the greatest expectations. And that's exactly what happened to Bo Bichette. His offensive production dropped significantly compared to what he consistently delivered in Toronto. His batting average fell well below the standard he had maintained throughout most of his major league career. His power numbers declined, and several advanced metrics also revealed a noticeable decrease in the quality of his contact. Even his production against fastballs, one of the trademarks of his offensive game for years, experienced a considerable drop. Throughout the season, the contrast became impossible to ignore. A player who had regularly ranked among the league's best offensive shortstops suddenly found himself struggling to produce consistently. In game after game, Bichette appeared to be carrying the pressure of justifying the enormous investment made by the Mets, while the team's disappointing overall performance made it nearly impossible for him to settle into any sense of rhythm or confidence. As a result, a conversation that few people expected at the beginning of the year has started gaining serious traction. Is this simply one disappointing season, or is there a deeper issue between Bo Bichette and his new environment in New York? That question is now being discussed by MLB analysts, baseball insiders, and especially Blue Jays fans, who continue to closely follow every headline involving one of the most beloved players in the franchise's recent history.
The entire situation even more intriguing. Unlike many long-term free agent contracts, Bichette's deal with the Mets includes opt-out clauses that could allow him to leave before the contract officially expires. In other words, if he ultimately decides that the organization's direction no longer aligns with his expectations, there is a realistic path toward exploring a new opportunity without waiting until the end of the agreement. And that's exactly where the Toronto Blue Jays enter the conversation once again. Not because there were negotiations taking place today, but because very few organizations in baseball understand Bo Bichette's talent as well as Toronto does. As questions continue to surround his adjustment in New York, more and more people are beginning to wonder whether the very best version of number 11 never truly left Toronto at all. The big question now is what will happen when the season comes to an end. At this point, no one can say for certain that Bo Bichette will leave. The New York Mets, but it no longer seems far-fetched to imagine that he could consider a new path if the next few months end the same way they began. What was once seen as the perfect partnership between one of the biggest names available in free agency and a franchise willing to spend heavily to return to the top of Major League Baseball has simply failed to produce the expected results so far. There is, of course, one extremely important financial factor in this story. Bichette still has a significant amount of guaranteed money remaining on his contract, and walking away from that security would not be an easy decision for any player. At the same time, athletes at his level think about much more than just money. Competing for championships, playing in an environment where they can perform at their very best, and being part of a solid winning project often carry just as much weight as the size of their paycheck. That balance may ultimately determine the next chapter of the former. Blue Jays star's career. Meanwhile, in Toronto, the situation has also drawn attention. Although the Blue Jays remain in the fight to stay competitive, the team's offense has not maintained the same level it displayed last season. Throughout several stretches of 2026, the lineup has struggled to produce consistently, fueling even more discussion about the need for reinforcements capable of changing the direction of the offense. And whenever a name like Bo Bichette resurfaces, it's impossible for fans not to imagine what it would be like to see him back on the field wearing a Blue Jays uniform. The connection between Bichette and Toronto was never just professional. From the moment he joined the organization as a promising prospect, he built an incredibly strong relationship with the fan base. Every big performance, every clutch hit, and every memorable moment during his years in a Blue Jays uniform helped create a bond that is rare in professional sports. That's why, even after his departure, his name continues to stir emotions whenever it is linked to the Blue Jays. But turning that dream into reality would be an enormous challenge. The first obstacle would be financial. After committing to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with a massive long-term contract, the Blue Jays now have a payroll that is heavily committed for the coming years. Any attempt to bring back another elite player would require careful planning and, most likely, significant adjustments to the roster. The front office would have to determine whether investing in Bichette once again would be the best decision for the organization's future, or whether other priorities should take precedence. There is also one question that still has no answer. Would Bichette himself want to come back? Despite the obvious affection he has for Toronto, professional athletes naturally see new challenges as part of their careers. He may simply believe he needs more time to adjust to life with the Mets. There is also the possibility that New York could build a much stronger roster for next season, making any discussion about leaving completely unnecessary. Even so, his performance so far has kept every one of those possibilities alive. Around Major League Baseball, analysts have already begun debating whether the decline in Bichette's production during 2026 is simply the result of a rough season or a consequence of the environment he has found in New York. Some believe that adjusting to a new organization, a new city, a different coaching staff, and different offensive philosophy can take much longer than many people realize. Others believe Bichette simply has not found the same level of comfort he consistently enjoyed while playing in front of Toronto's fans. Regardless of the explanation, the numbers clearly show a noticeable difference between the dominant player fans watched in Toronto and the version that has taken the field for the Mets this season. That comparison naturally fuels speculation about what might happen if he were ever to wear a Blue Jays uniform again. It's important to remember that as of now, there have been no reports of negotiations or any concrete movement between the two sides. At this moment, all that exists are circumstances that make this possibility far more intriguing than it seemed just a few months ago. The Mets are enduring a disappointing season. Bichette is still searching for his best form. The Blue Jays need more offensive production, and together, those factors create a situation that naturally captures the imagination of baseball fans. Baseball has seen countless reunion stories over the years. Players who left in search of new opportunities eventually returned to the organizations where they experienced the greatest moments of their careers. In many cases, those reunions produced unforgettable chapters. In others, they remained nothing more than rumors fueled by passionate fan bases. For now, no one knows which category
Bichette's story will ultimately fall into. What does seem clear is that the coming months will be crucial. Every remaining game this season could directly influence the future of both Bichette and the Mets. If the team manages to turn things around, start winning again, and restore a positive atmosphere within the organization, these rumors may disappear just as quickly as they appeared. But if the struggles continue, questions about his future will only become louder. For Toronto Blue Jays fans, all that's left is to watch every new development closely. After all, when a player who helped define an era begins struggling away from home, it's impossible not to wonder what it would be like to see him back in front of the fans who supported him for so many years. And perhaps that is the biggest story of this season. Not simply whether Bo Bichette will remain with the Mets or decide to pursue a new opportunity, but where he truly believes he can once again play the best baseball of his career. That answer is still being written on the field, one game at a time. Until then, one thing is certain. Bo Bichette's future has once again become a major topic of conversation in Toronto, and it's a story worth following all the way to the final chapter.